Today, we're diving deep into one of the most influential, ambitious, and frankly controversial blueprints for society ever imagined, Plato's perfect state straight from his masterpiece, The Republic.
Everything kicks off with a question that we're still wrestling with thousands of years later. What does a truly just society actually look like? For Plato, this wasn't just some abstract puzzle. It was the most important question we could possibly ask about how to live together.
Now, Plato had a clever idea. He thought, it's kind of hard to see justice in a single person, but maybe if we blow it up, if we look at a whole city, we can see it writ large. So he says, let's build an ideal city from scratch, right here in this discussion, and see if we can spot justice in its bones. So where do you even start? You start with the foundation. And for Plato, a city isn't born from some grand political philosophy, but from something way more fundamental. It's born from human need. That's the origin story. I mean, think about it. None of us are self-sufficient. You need food, I need a house, someone else needs clothes. So naturally, we gather together in one spot to help each other out. And that simple community of helpers, that, for Plato, is a state. Okay, so people are gathered together. Now, how do you organize them? This is where Plato lays down his first and most important rule. It's the bedrock of his entire system. This quote gets right to the point. There's no multitasking in Plato's ideal city. No side hustles, you do the one thing you're meant to do and you get really, really good at it. He believed this was essential because every person has a specific nature, a single role they were born to fill. This is what he calls the principle of specialization. The core idea is that every single one of us has a natural talent for one particular job. The city's function is to figure out what that is and make sure you stick to it. And for Plato, this is the very first step toward a truly just society. And what's the immediate result of this rule? Well, you get a whole class of people, farmers, carpenters, weavers, you name it. This group, the producers, becomes the economic engine of the city, making sure everyone has what they need to survive. But a city of just producers isn't the whole story, is it? As it gets bigger and wealthier, it's going to need protection. And even more important, who's going to lead this place? Who has the wisdom to steer the ship? This leads us to the next layers of Plato's state. Plato's solution is a really rigid three-part class system. It's a strict hierarchy, but he believes it's absolutely necessary for stability and justice. The real question, though, is how do you get everyone to accept their place in the pyramid? This is where things get interesting. He proposes a brilliant and, let's be honest, pretty unsettling piece of state propaganda. A foundational story he calls a magnificent untruth, or the noble lie, that has to be told to every citizen to keep the peace. So the story goes something like this. Everyone in the city is a brother or sister, born from the same earth. But when God was making them, he mixed different metals into their souls. Some people got gold, others got silver, and the rest got brass and iron. And that metal, well, that decides your role in life, forever. And this myth lines up perfectly with the city's three classes. The rulers, the guardians, they're the ones with gold in their souls, and they represent wisdom. The warriors, who are called the auxiliaries, have silver souls, and their virtue is courage. And finally, you have the producers, with their brass and iron souls, who need to practice temperance or self-control. And right here, we finally get Plato's answer to that big question from the beginning. What is justice? For Plato, justice is this harmony. It's when the shoemaker sticks to shoes, the soldier sticks to defending, and the ruler sticks to ruling. Justice is everyone doing their own job and not meddling in anyone else's business. So that brings us to the very top of the pyramid. Who exactly are these golden-souled guardians? This is where Plato drops his most famous and most radical idea of all. I mean, just think about it for a second. Who could possibly be wise enough, good enough to run the entire state? Who actually has that pure, uncorrupted gold inside them? The answer is probably not who you think. And there it is, the bombshell. The only people fit to rule are philosophers. Not wealthy aristocrats, not powerful generals, but people who love wisdom. This was an absolutely shocking idea back then, and it's still pretty shocking now. So let's check out their resume. They are obsessed with truth and hate lies. They're described as spectators of all time and all existence. They see the big picture. And here's the kicker. They have absolutely zero interest in wealth or power. They would much rather just sit and think. In fact, you literally have to force them to rule out of a sense of duty to the city. And that's the beautiful paradox at the heart of it all. The very fact that they don't want to rule is the ultimate proof that they're the only ones who should. Why? Because you know they'll govern for the good of everyone, not for their own selfish gain. So you've got these perfect, reluctant rulers. But how do you protect this perfectly balanced state from falling apart? Well, Plato says to make a huge story like the noble lie stick, you can't just tell one story. You have to control all the stories. That's right. To keep the city's soul pure, you have to carefully manage what people see, read, and hear. And his number one target is a bit of a surprise. The artists, especially the great poets like Homer. His argument is pretty deep, but he explains it with this great analogy of three beds. First, there's the true idea of a bed, the perfect form of a bed, which he says is made by God. Second, a carpenter makes a physical bed, which is just a copy of that perfect idea. And third, an artist comes along and paints a picture of the carpenter's bed, making a copy of a copy. So for Plato, art is twice removed from reality. It's just a shadow of a shadow. So what's the big deal? Well, Plato sees two huge dangers. First, he says art stirs up our lower emotions like fear and pity, and weakens our ability to be rational. And second, when poets tell stories about gods and heroes who are flawed, who lie and cheat and get angry, it sets a terrible example for the citizens. In his perfect city, all art would have to be simple, rational, and squeaky clean. And all of this leaves us with the massive, troubling question that hangs over the entire republic. Plato's state might be perfectly ordered, incredibly stable and harmonious, but can a society truly be called just if it's held together by a foundational lie and maintained through strict censorship? That is a question that we are all still debating to this very day.